WrestleMania season. Every wrestling fan's favorite time of year. We're about to get to the Royal Rumble. We are on the road to WrestleMania. On the road to WrestleMania 40. And with WWE having a tradition of making the WrestleManias on the 10s even more grand than usual, providing cathartic and satisfying moments, there might be no better time than WrestleMania 40 for Cody Rhodes to finally do what his father never could. Win the WWE Championship and finish the story.
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
Ah, fuck. So, heading into 2024, a lot of us thought we knew what the main event of WrestleMania 40 was going to be. Cody Rhodes was finally going to do what he couldn't do last year, win the WWE Championship, and finish the story. And then at Raw Day 1, The Rock came back and threw a wrench into things. Now we don't know where we're heading for the main event. So let me give you my pitch. So I start my story at the Royal Rumble, and basically everything is the same as it is now, with just a few differences. Seth Rollins, instead of facing Drew McIntyre at Day 1, faces him at the Royal Rumble, and they kind of build a program together. Seth Rollins also wins that match. And Seth Rollins also doesn't hurt his knee, because I wrote this all before that happened, and I don't feel like writing it in. And the last thing is I'm ignoring any reports that Roman Reigns will not be at the Elimination Chamber, because just forget that garbage, Roman. Just be there, please. Other than that, basically everything else has been the same. Cody Rhodes has said that he's going to enter the Royal Rumble and he's going to finally finish his story. CM Punk is declared for the Royal Rumble and he's still continued to kind of build his feud with Seth Rollins. And Roman Reigns is still set to defend his championship in a Fatal 4-Way versus AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and LA Knight at the Royal Rumble. At the Royal Rumble in the Fatal 4-Way, at one point in the match, Randy Orton basically has it won. He counters AJ Styles' springboard 450 into an RKO. It looks incredible. And just before the 3 count, Solo Sikoa pulls him out of the ring. Of course, this is all legal. It's a Fatal 4-Way. There's no disqualification. And eventually, Roman Reigns spears LA Knight and pins him for the win. And during the match, while he's barking out orders to Jimmy and Solo, you can definitely see they're not too pleased with how he's speaking to them. In the Men's Royal Rumble, the number 1 entrant is Cody Rhodes, and the number 2 entrant is Gunther. And they both have incredible Iron Man performances lasting all the way towards the end. As we get towards the end of the Rumble, with 28 people having entered and only 2 left, the only people remaining in the ring are Cody Rhodes, Gunther, Logan Paul, Ricochet, and Chad Gable. And with Cody and Gunther kind of strewn about in the corner, exhausted, and Ricochet and Logan Paul laying on the canvas after some other ridiculous spot, I don't know, an 8-10 splash through a steel table, Chad Gable's the only one left standing as the buzzer sounds for number 29. Brock comes out and has a stare down with Chad Gable before they begin beating the hell out of each other. Eventually, Chad Gable hits an incredible Chaos Theory on Brock Lesnar, and instead of holding him for the pin, he throws him across the ring in a suplex, and all the superstars are left lying on the canvas exhausted as the buzzer sounds for number 30. And CM Punk is your number 30 entrant, and there's actually a very specific reason that he's coming in at number 30 that I will talk about later. In the final sequence, we see Chad Gable and Gunther come face to face, kind of rekindling their rivalry from last year. And as they're struggling up against the ropes, Brock Lesnar sneaks up behind both of them and dumps them both over the top rope. Kind of stares them down, maybe planting some seeds of something happening at WrestleMania. And when he turns around, Ricochet is doing a springboard crossbody to him, which Brock catches in his arms. He throws Ricochet up on his shoulders for an F5. And as he turns around to hit the F5, Logan Paul is doing a springboard crossbody from the other side of the ring, and Brock manages to catch him in his arms with Ricochet still on his shoulders. And I don't know if that's possible. The ergonomics maybe don't make sense, but if anyone could pull it off, it'd be them 3. And then Brock just, with Logan in his arms, dumps him over the top rope. He F5s Ricochet on top of him, and he takes just a little bit too long admiring his work because CM Punk comes up from behind him and scoops him over the top rope and get some revenge for that incredible match that they had back at SummerSlam in 2013 when Lesnar beat Punk. And with that said, we're down to just CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, the number 1 and the number 30 entrant in the Royal Rumble. And it's very clear that CM Punk has the advantage because Cody is just beaten down. He's tired. He can hardly stand. And they go a few minutes. They maybe have a little bit of a mini match, but it's very clear that CM Punk has the upper hand and he's able to get Cody up on his shoulders for GTS, and he literally just dumps his lifeless body over the top rope, really kind of amplifying this idea that Cody was just so exhausted, and CM Punk is your Royal Rumble 2024 winner. A couple nights later on Raw, CM Punk wastes no time choosing who he wants to face at WrestleMania. He's going to face Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, and they continue building that program that they started a couple months ago, and throughout that program, we actually find out that as CM Punk was trying to decide about going to Raw or SmackDown, and obviously Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis were both kind of trying to recruit them over to their side, CM Punk actually came to Raw because Adam Pearce promised him the number 30 spot in the Royal Rumble, and CM Punk kind of took the shortcut to get to the main event of WrestleMania. We'll talk about that later. And so the 2-month program definitely sees CM Punk trending heel and Seth Rollins kind of being the WWE defending babyface. I mean, he wasn't that in the Cody Rhodes program, but you know what I mean. And that is the program that they're going to build, and I'm probably really not going to talk much about that anymore. I'm going to be just focusing on the Undisputed Universal WWE Championship from here on out. And so that next episode of SmackDown, Nick Aldis announces that there's going to be an Elimination Chamber match to determine who will get to face Roman Reigns for his championship at WrestleMania 40. Randy Orton tries to plead his case to Nick Aldis that he should be in the Elimination Chamber, and Nick agrees because Randy basically had that match at the Royal Rumble 1, if it weren't for Solo Sikoa, and LA Knight and AJ Styles are also kind of pleading their case, but Nick's not as convinced because AJ Styles is the one who almost ate the losing pin to Randy Orton, and LA Knight was the one who ate the actual pin to Roman Reigns. So he tells them that if they can get along, they maybe can get into the Elimination Chamber because next week it's going to be AJ Styles and LA Knight versus a team of Nick's choice, and the winning team, those participants, will go into the Elimination Chamber match. After the Chamber match is announced, we see Paul Heyman and Roman talking backstage. We don't really know what they're talking about, but Roman sends Paul Heyman off, and we would later see Paul Heyman walking out of Nick Aldis' office saying thank you. That night on SmackDown in the main event, Roman Reigns comes out with the rest of the Bloodline. It seems like it's going to be kind of a celebration for his victory at Royal Rumble, but he takes the microphone, he looks down the hard camera, and he says, on April 4th, 2020, with a global pandemic happening and a compromised immune system due to a terminal illness, I sat on my couch and I watched Braun Strowman win the Universal Championship, my Universal Championship, at WrestleMania 36. And the next night, I watched Drew McIntyre win the WWE Championship, my WWE Championship, in the main event of WrestleMania 36. And in that moment, I swore to myself that I would reach the mountaintop again and I would never leave it. I came back stronger and sharper than ever. I won back my Universal Championship. At WrestleMania 37, I defended my Universal Championship against 2 future Hall of Famers in the main event of WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 38, I beat the Beast Incarnate for my WWE Championship in the main event of WrestleMania. And at WrestleMania 39, I defended my undisputed Universal WWE Championship in the main event of WrestleMania. So I don't give a damn who wins the Elimination Chamber. The fact of the matter is, for the 4th year straight, I will walk into the main event of WrestleMania as your champion, your tribal chief.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
The Rock comes out and stares down Roman. The crowd's going absolutely crazy at this point, so they let the moment simmer for a bit. And finally, they start trading barbs. Roman goes after The Rock for the fact that he just comes back every few years when he needs the glory or a payday. And The Rock goes after Roman for the fact that he hardly defends the title, and when he does, he hasn't had an honest defense of the title in years. And The Rock says, You're so sure that you're going to be the champion walking into WrestleMania, but I wouldn't be. You see, I've been talking to Nick Aldis, and we both agree that on February 24th, it would be best if The Rock got in his car, drove down to LAX, got in his private jet, flew west, waved down to the motherland of Samoa, landed in Perth, showed up at Elimination Chamber, pinned you on that mat, 1, 2, 3, took your championship, polished it up real nice, turned that sumbitch sideways, and stuck it straight up your candy ass! Roman is absolutely furious at this point. He goes to take a swing at The Rock, but The Rock ducks it. He starts hitting Roman. He tries to hit him with his patented 3 punches, and as he goes to spit in his hand for the third one, Solo grabs him, hits him with a Samoan spike, and The Rock is left in the ring alone. The next week on SmackDown, the episode starts with LA Knight and AJ Styles in the ring. Nick Aldis introduces his surprise tag team, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. And these guys have a great 20-minute match, and of course AJ and LA Knight are butting heads now and then, but they are able to pull off the win, and therefore they're in the Elimination Chamber along with Randy Orton. And Nick Aldis comes out and announces that the other 3 participants in the chamber will be announced next week on SmackDown. It's also around this time that we start to see Nick Aldis' demeanor changing a little bit. He's kind of going on a power trip, and he starts doing things like booking small baby faces in these matches with giant heels and other things like that, all in the name of ensuring that SmackDown remains the most competitive product that WWE has to offer. And he really keeps hammering that home, and it's clear that everything that he does, his motivation around that is basically just beating Monday Night Raw. Later in the episode, The Rock comes out and he cuts a promo kind of about his tribal heritage and how it's really important to him, and even though he doesn't really talk about it much, it does mean the world to him, and having the tribal chief act the way that Roman does really doesn't sit well with him. It's unacceptable. So he asks Roman to come out, and he does, along with the rest of the bloodline. And they kind of trade back the same barbs that they did before. And The Rock kind of gets back to this idea that you haven't defended your title honestly in what feels like years. The only reason you still are the champion, you still are the tribal chief, is because of the bloodline. And he points to Jimmy and Solo. He says to them, you two are really just going to stand back and let Roman Reigns treat you like this? You're going to let him bear the fruits of your labor? You know as well as I do that he would not still be the championship today if it weren't for you. He wouldn't still be the tribal chief today if it weren't for you, Jimmy. Jimmy and Solo kind of stand there stone-faced because a good part of them agrees with what he's saying. And so The Rock says, so I've spoken to the elders and they agree we need to settle this in tribal combat. But this will not be like your tribal combat with Jay, because the elders were very displeased with the fact that you violated the sacred rules of tribal combat by using outside interference. Yes, WWE, we remember that that was a rule of tribal combat, and then you walked it back and hoped that none of us would remember. But we do. Anyways, The Rock says, if you win that match by outside interference, you will be stripped of your title of tribal chief, and the elders will decide who gets that title later on. So if you want to keep your title of tribal chief, you will need to do it alone. And The Rock gets out of the ring, and the match is official. It will be The Rock versus Roman Reigns in tribal combat at the Elimination Chamber. At this point, I kind of need to squeeze into the story that the WWE has announced that the WWE Draft is back. It's going to happen after WrestleMania just like it did last year. They can announce it on Raw, on SmackDown, I don't really care. But the draft is back. It's going to be a yearly occurrence from here on. Then next week on SmackDown, it starts with the Bloodline in the ring. Roman Reigns is denouncing The Rock, saying he's going to defeat him in Elimination Chamber, and that he doesn't care who wins the Elimination Chamber match to face him at WrestleMania, because there's not a single superstar in the SmackDown locker room that can take him down from the mountaintop. And just then, he's interrupted by Nick Aldis. Nick comes out and says, speaking of the Elimination Chamber, I did promise to announce the 3 remaining participants in the Elimination Chamber match. Now, last week, Paul did come into my office, and he made a very good point that it is only fair that there is bloodline representation in a match this big. So the 4th entrant into the Elimination Chamber match, will come no surprise to you guys, is going to be Jimmy Uso. And Solo is clearly taken aback by this. These plans have obviously caught him off guard. He's very offended the fact that Solo wasn't chosen to be the bloodline representation. in the Elimination Chamber. Nick then continues. As for the remaining 2 participants in the Elimination Chamber, it is my job as the general manager of SmackDown to ensure that SmackDown remains the most competitive product that WWE has to offer. Especially heading into WrestleMania, I plan to push all of my chips into the middle, and so I made a deal with Raw GM Adam Pearce. I've traded one of our first round draft picks at the upcoming WWE draft after WrestleMania in exchange for the rights to 2 of Raw's superstars for the remainder of the season. So, please welcome the 2 newest SmackDown superstars and the 2 final participants in the Elimination Chamber match. And as Jay comes out to shake Nick's hand,
Wrestling has more than one royal family.
and the entire bloodline is left staring at 2 of the biggest ghosts of their past. Quick note here, there actually is no SmackDown the day before Elimination Chamber because of the time zone situation in Australia, so I imagine they'll be cramming all the programming onto the Raw before Elimination Chamber. So The Rock and Roman are set to have a contract signing at that episode of Raw, and before they go out in Roman's dressing room, Roman is telling Jimmy and Solo that the elders have expressed very clearly that they want no violence at the contract signing. They do still all come out together. Jimmy and Solo come with Roman along with Paul Heyman, and The Rock comes out alone. They have their contract signing. They don't really say much to each other. They do kind of that same hug that Roman and Jay did before their tribal chief match. And then as The Rock turns to leave, Roman grabs him and hits him. And he starts beating him down. And Jimmy and Solo are kind of on the outside. They don't know what to do. And Jay comes out to pull Roman off. Jimmy and Solo pull Jay off. And they beat him down to kind of neutralize him. And then you see Roman is screaming at Jimmy and Solo to come in and help him beat down The Rock. And Jimmy and Solo are obviously very conflicted. You know, the elders kind of made their wishes very clear. And they're just kind of left standing outside the ring watching. And Roman just goes back to beating up The Rock. And Jimmy and Solo walk out. And eventually Roman hits the Uranagi on The Rock through the contract signing table. Yes, the ever so present contract signing table. You can't have one without throwing someone through it, of course. And the last image we have before Elimination Chamber is The Rock down on the table, strewn about, and Roman standing over him, holding in one hand his title belt, and in his other hand his lei, the symbolism of the tribal chiefdom. In the Elimination Chamber match, the match starts with LA Knight versus AJ Styles. They have a good 5 minutes back and forth, and the first pod to open is Randy Orton. Randy Orton comes out, and they kind of have their little triple threat. At one point, Randy hits a draping DDT onto LA Knight, and as he stands up, AJ Styles is going for his springboard 450 again, and again, Randy Orton catches him in the RKO just like at the Rumble, but this time, he pins AJ Styles for the 1-2-3, and AJ is the first one eliminated. Right after AJ's elimination, the second pod opens, and it's Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy comes out, he starts kind of controlling it, he's the fresher guy, he's delivering super kicks, and he kind of controls the pace for the next few minutes until eventually the fourth pod opens. Jimmy's kind of the only one left standing at that point, and it is Jey Uso, who comes out, he stands in the ring facing his brother. He seems like they're maybe just about to have a moment. Maybe you see a little smile until they are blindsided by Randy Orton. But the Usos work together. They easily dispose of Randy Orton. They bounce him off the ropes and into a 3D. And Jay gets the pin to eliminate Randy. And then just as it seems like maybe the Usos are going to have a moment again, LA Knight blindsides them. But the Usos dispose of him easily. Jay delivers a super kick, and then Jimmy, and then they deliver a double super kick. Jay goes up for the splash, and he kind of offers the pin to Jimmy. Says, go ahead and take the pin, kind of as almost a peace offering. And Jimmy pins LA Knight, and he celebrates for just a moment after pinning LA for the 1-2-3. And just as he does, Jay rolls up Jimmy and pins him for the 1-2-3. Jay eliminates Jimmy, and Jay is looking at Jimmy completely stone-faced. the entire kind of moment that they were having was a lie to kind of draw Jimmy in, and now Jimmy's been eliminated. And Jimmy kind of laughs for a second, and it's kind of like, he gets it. And he gets up to get out, but then suddenly he turns around, he jumps on Jay, and he starts beating him down. He throws him outside the ring, and he's slamming Jay's head onto the grate, and he's slamming his head into the chains, and eventually the referees are jumping in. The pod's door is still open, the cage door is still open, and they run in, and they're trying to pull Jimmy off, and Cody's still in his pod. He still hasn't gotten out yet, and he's pounding on the pod, telling Jimmy to stop, and they're trying to pull Jimmy off, and eventually Jimmy kind of backs away, but then he gets back on Jay, and he beats him down more. He keeps slamming his head against the chain wall and the floor grate, and finally the referees are able to pull Jimmy off, and Jay's just kind of left beaten and broken. And just as the referees are kind of pulling Jimmy out of the chamber and resealing the door, we see the countdown happening for the last pod to open. Of course, it's going to be Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes comes out, and he's looking at Jay, and there's medical attending to Jay still, and the referees are making sure he's good to go, and Cody doesn't really know how to act. I mean, this is not how he wanted to win this match, and they give it a few minutes, and Jay's able to kind of recover a bit. He kind of pulls himself back up to his feet, and Cody's conflicted. He doesn't know what to do, but all he can do is have the match, and they only go a couple minutes, and Cody very clearly has the upper hand the entire time. Jay is just too beaten down, and Cody, mercifully hits him with the crossroads, only one single crossroads, and pins Jay for the 1, 2, 3. And Cody Rhodes will be facing the winner of Roman Reigns and The Rock at WrestleMania 40. In the main event of Elimination Chamber, it's The Rock versus Roman Reigns for the undisputed Universal WWE Championship and the title of Tribal Chief in Tribal Combat. And earlier in the night, we see Roman Reigns talking to Jimmy and Solo, telling them to not get involved. The stipulations have been made very clear, and Roman does not want to lose his title as Tribal Chief. So he demands that they do not get involved in any way. And so Roman comes out alone. The Rock obviously comes out alone as well. They have themselves a fine little 20, 25-minute match. It's kind of hard to expect much from The Rock at this point because it's just obvious. And but the fact that Roman tends to work this sort of slow burn, jaw-jacking match could work in his favor, and I think they could still tell a really good story. At one point in the match, The Rock ducks a Superman punch and counters it into a rock bottom for a 2 count. Towards the end of the match, you have The Rock getting up, and Roman is kind of stalking him, getting ready to spear him through a table that's set up in the corner, which is the exact same spot that put Jay away in Tribal Combat back at SummerSlam. But The Rock manages to sidestep the spear. Roman goes crashing through the table, and then The Rock is kind of stalking Roman Reigns. He gets him set up for the rock bottom. He hits him with the people's elbow and pins him for the 1, 2, and Solo pulls him out of the ring and delivers a Samoan spike. And the referee does not stop the match because throughout this time, since the rules have been put into place for Tribal Combat, the announcers have put over the fact that in terms of the Tribal Chiefdom, yes, outside interference will result in him losing his title of Tribal Chief. But as far as WWE is concerned, and for the WWE Championship, this is a no disqualification match. So the match isn't going to end because of a disqualification. Roman rolls over and realizes what Solo has done. He gets up in Solo's face, barking at him, telling him that he had things handled. And the look on Solo's face tells everything we need to know, that he truly believed that Roman was about to get pinned and lose his championship. And that's the belief of everyone else in attendance too. But Roman continues to go after Solo until eventually The Rock shoves Roman from behind. Roman collides with Solo, and Solo goes flying out of the ring, and Roman goes bouncing off the ropes and comes back and ducks a clothesline from The Rock. Comes back the other way, ducks another clothesline, comes back off the ropes a third time and hits The Rock with the momentum spear for the 1, 2, 3, and still your undisputed Universal WWE Champion, Roman Reigns. And Paul Heyman comes out, he's got the championship belt, and he's got the lei, and he gives Roman the belt, and he lays the lay over Roman's head until suddenly some new music starts playing that we haven't heard. It's tribal in nature, and out comes Rikishi and the other elders. They slowly make their way down to the ring. As they step into the ring, Roman gets down onto one knee to bow before them, and as he does, Rikishi reaches down, pulls the lei off of Roman's shoulders, turns around, and leaves the ring. And the kind of final image from Elimination Chamber is Roman still with this title belt, but more broken than we've ever seen him, as he's just lost his title of Tribal Chief. That Friday on SmackDown, the show opens with Roman Reigns coming out to confront the people. He puts his finger in the air, he takes a microphone, and he says, "Glendale." And before he can ask the people to acknowledge him,
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
The Rock comes out holding a leather folio, and he says, "I know you were not just about to ask the people to acknowledge you. Acknowledge you as what? You are no longer the Tribal Chief." And this makes Roman furious. The Rock continues, "And as I knew all along, you could not beat The Rock without help from those around you. And so it's a good thing that when I signed my one-match contract with SmackDown, I put a special clause in there. If Roman Reigns defeats me with the help of anyone else violating the rules of tribal combat, The Rock will get one more rematch for the undisputed Universal WWE Championship at a time of his choosing." Roman is apoplectic at this point. The Rock says, "Nick, could you come out here, please?" Nick Aldis comes out and The Rock says, "Nick, I would like to officially declare for my rematch against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in Tribal Combat." Nick smiles and shakes The Rock's hand and says, "You got it." And he goes to turn to leave, but then he turns back and he says, "Oh, and Roman, one more thing. If you violate the rules of Tribal Combat again at WrestleMania, not only will you no longer be the Tribal Chief, but I will strip you of your undisputed Universal WWE Champion, and you will not be that either." Roman is absolutely furious at this point, and just as Nick goes to leave, he adds one more thing and says, "And as for Cody's status for WrestleMania, I'll address that later tonight." Later on SmackDown, we see a graphic. It says that The Rock will take on Roman Reigns at Night 1 of WrestleMania. The winner of that match will face Cody Rhodes at Night 2. That night on SmackDown in the main event, Nick Aldis comes out face-to-face with Cody Rhodes and says, "It is my job as the general manager of SmackDown to ensure that SmackDown remains the most competitive product that WWE has to offer. And in my mind, there's two ways that I can do that. Number one is ensuring that the most deserving superstars get their shots at the title, especially at WrestleMania, and especially at my first WrestleMania as general manager of SmackDown. After your performance at the Elimination Chamber, I'm not so sure that I can say that you are the most deserving. I will not allow any cheap wins or shortcuts to the top. I'm going to need to see more from you to know that you're the guy who should be main eventing WrestleMania." Which led me to think of the second way that I can ensure that SmackDown remains the most competitive product that WWE has to offer. And that is to always think outside the box and shake things up around here. You see, Pierce and I both had our eyes on the same free agent that we wanted to represent our brand for WrestleMania. And I was able to offer something that Pierce couldn't. A chance to walk out of WrestleMania as the undisputed Universal WWE Champion. So, you will face SmackDown's newest superstar at Night 1 of WrestleMania 40. And if he beats you, he will take your place in the main event of Night 2 for the undisputed Universal WWE Championship. And Cody's absolutely flabbergasted, and Nick turns to leave, but he turns back real quick and says, "Oh, and you know what's really weird? He seemed more excited at the idea of getting to have a match with you than he did at getting a chance for the championship. I'm not really sure why that is." And he turns to leave, and Cody is just absolutely perplexed. And just as he's mouthing the words, "Who are you talking about?" And MJF stands at the top of the ramp with a shit-eating grin, and Cody is left staring at a relic of his past. That next week, SmackDown opens with MJF's music. He comes out and says, "For those of you who somehow don't know who I am, there's only two things you need to know. My name is Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and I'm better than you, and soon you will know it." On New Year's Day, I became the hottest free agent that wrestling has ever seen. And Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis came knocking on my door, offering anything they possibly could to sign me to their brand, because they both know that I am the fastest rising young superstar that the wrestling industry has ever seen.
Wrestling has more than one royal family.
Cody comes walking down the ramp and he says, all right, Max. I've heard this shtick before and I sure as hell didn't miss it." He gets in the ring, gets face to face with Max and says, "Now why don't you just tell me what the hell you're doing here?" Max just laughs. "Nice to see you too, old friend." "Well, you see, I'm here to finish my story." And Max laughs. You see, WWE Universe, 2 years ago, Cody Rhodes took his ball and he went home. He came back to WWE and he might cry and tell you that it's because his father had a legacy here. But the real reason is because he knew he could never be the champion in a promotion where I was. He never had the killer instinct to beat me. He could never stoop down to the level of the devil. Max laughs again and says, so he comes to a promotion where he knows he can actually win a championship. And what did he do at WrestleMania 39? He let you all down and failed again. Just like he let me down years ago. And now he's back to finish his story again. But Cody, why is this story so important to you? Is it because you want the glory of the moment? Is it because you made Dusty a promise? Or is it because in 40 years, when you're dead and buried in the ground, you want to make sure that little Liberty has something that she can watch back and be proud of? Which is a hell of a lot more than you can say about Dusty. Cody starts attacking MJF, beating the hell of him. Security's got to come out and separate them. Cody breaks away from security multiple times, beating down MJF. And finally, MJF gets kind of a shield of humans between him and Cody Rhodes, and he flees backstage like the coward that he is. Later in the show, MJF storms into Nick Aldis' office and says, "What the hell kind of promotion are you running here? You have people just attacking people for absolutely no reason?" Listen, there's a reason that I put in a 30-day opt-out clause on my contract. And if Cody Rhodes lays a hand on me before our match at WrestleMania again, I will walk and go get a better deal from Pierce. Got it? Later in the show, Nick goes to Cody and says, "Cody, you can't lay a hand on MJF again. MJF is just, he's too big of a signing. He's important to the mission to make SmackDown the most competitive product that WWE has to offer." He tells Cody if he lays a hand on MJF again and MJF opts out of his contract, Cody will automatically lose his match for the main event at WrestleMania. Now, in my opinion, the fun of this kind of program is you have 4 possible matches that could happen at night 2 in the main event for the championship, depending on who wins the matches at night 1. And what is the fun thing about it is also what is the challenging thing about it, because you need to be able to build a program kind of for all 4 of those, because you need to make it viable that any 4 of those could happen. Otherwise, you're kind of giving away the ending. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about kind of how they weave in the program. I think obviously the program between Cody and Roman is pretty obvious. And then the other 3 matches that could potentially happen, I'm very confident these are 4 of the greatest talkers in wrestling right now and in the history of wrestling. So I have complete confidence they could build a good program. I'll go into a little bit of detail of some of the little things I think should be in there, but I do think that they're all 4 good enough to be able to sell any 4 of these matchups as potentially being the main event of night 2 of WrestleMania. In the main event of the WrestleMania Go-Home show, we start with MJF in the ring. He's healing it up, all the cheap heat he could possibly get. But he closes by saying, "At WrestleMania 40, I will beat Cody Rhodes, and I don't care who I have to beat on night 2, if it's the Tribal Chief or that washed-up has-been The Rock. I will walk out of WrestleMania 40 as the undisputed Universal WWE Champion, because my name is Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and I'm better than you, and you know.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
The Rock comes out, he stares daggers into MJF as he walks by him, gets up on the turnbuckle and poses for the fans. Walks by him again, staring more daggers, gets up on the other corner turnbuckle and poses for the fans. And then finally comes face to face with MJF. The crowd going crazy because these are literally possibly 2 of the top 5 greatest talkers in the history of wrestling going face to face. MJF smiles and finally breaks the silence. He says, "Rocky, I was just kidding about all that stuff before. It's just for show. I'm actually a huge fan. You see, you get to come out here, say a couple catchphrases, and these marks, they lap it up. You wrestle a couple matches, you make more money in 20 minutes than any of these losers make in an entire lifetime. You get back on your private jet and you go home. You're living the life." The Rock continues to just stare at MJF blankly. And finally he says, "I'm sorry, son, I don't believe we've met." MJF smirks, puts out his hand and says, "Hi, my name is Maxwell It doesn't matter what your name is!" Obviously, this pisses MJ off, and they go back and forth trading barbs. I think it could be a segment for the ages, in my opinion. And finally, MJF just says, "Listen, Rocky, I don't know why I'm wasting my time talking to you. You're washed up, and you're going up against one of the most dominant champions we've ever seen. I want to talk to the person who I will be facing at night 2 for the undisputed Universal WWE Championship." MJF rolls his eyes as Cody's music hits, and Cody comes into the ring, doesn't even look at Max, goes face to face with The Rock, and says, "Look, Rock, it's nothing personal. I don't care if I have to beat you or Roman Reigns for the championship. But the fact of the matter is, these people haven't had a real fighting champion in years. These people deserve a fighting champion who will be here for the fans, not when they want to be." The Rock tells Cody that it's not personal for him either. He's really proud of Cody, and he's really impressed by what he's done for himself over the last 5 years or so. And that he knew Dusty personally, and he knows that Dusty would be proud too. But The Rock's mission is to restore honor to the NOIE family name, a name that Roman has dragged through the mud over the last few years. Roman comes out with Solo and Paul, and he trades barbs with The Rock for a while, and The Rock says, "You made it clear that you cannot beat me without help from others." He looks over at Solo and he says, "Let me guess, Roman is still blaming you for losing his title of Tribal Chief. When we both know that if you hadn't done something, not only would he lost his title of Tribal Chief, he would have lost his championship too." Roman angrily rants to The Rock and he says, "I am the one who brought honor back to the NOIE family name after you abandoned the family tradition and gave the name a black eye. I am the one who dragged the NOIE family name back to the island of relevancy, and I will be the one who goes to WrestleMania 40, retakes his rightful title as the Tribal Chief of the NOIE family, and walks out of WrestleMania as the Tribal Chief and undisputed Universal WWE Champion." The final shot is The Rock opposite Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes opposite MJF, staring each other down before the showcase of the Immortals. My other matches for WrestleMania are Brock Lesnar versus Chad Gable versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title, which Chad Gable wins by pinning Gunther, who only goes down after taking an F5 followed by a Chaos Theory. Jey Uso defeats Jimmy Uso in Hell in a Cell, and afterwards the Bloody Brothers hug in the middle of the ring. And Rhea Ripley defeats Becky Lynch for the Women's World Championship. Braun Breaker wins the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and just have it at WrestleMania. You have 2 nights. You don't have to have it on SmackDown. The Creed Brothers defeat Judgment Day for the Tag Team Championships. Sasha Banks and Naomi defeat Katana Chance and Kaden Carter for the Women's Tag Team Championships. The Miz continues his tradition of putting out an open challenge for anyone, and he is defeated by a returning Big E Langston. Randy Orton defeats Drew McIntyre. LA Knight defeats AJ Styles, Logan Paul, Ricochet, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens in a ladder match for the United States title. Bayley defeats Io Sky for the WWE Women's Championship. Nick Aldis defeats Adam Pearce, and the winner of the match actually gets an extra first-round pick in the upcoming WWE draft. And a heel CM Punk defeats Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. At WrestleMania 40, Night 1 opens with Cody Rhodes versus MJF for the right to main event Night 2. They have an excellent 25-minute match. I would like to see Max do some of his indie stuff that he's been doing lately as a face, but also mostly mixing in his just incredibly great heelish work. This is going to be the first chance a lot of WWE fans are going to get to see MJF wrestle, so I really think they should kind of show his whole portfolio and show what he has to offer. Towards the end of the match, MJF is almost shoved into the referee in the corner, but stops himself just in time. He kind of, as the referee is kind of cowering away, MJF hits the low blow right behind him to Cody without the referee seeing, and then MJF gets Cody into the crossroads, hits him with one, hits him with a second crossroads, and hits him with a third crossroads for the 1-2 kick out by Cody, and MJF is just apoplectic at this point. He pins him again. 1-2 kick out by Cody. Pins him again. 1-2 kick out by Cody. And MJF just can't believe what he's seeing. He's pounding the mat. He's begging the referee for a 3 count. And finally he goes into the corner and he pulls out a nondescript ring from his tights. He puts it on, and just as he's about to go hit Cody, the referee sees the ring. He pulls it from MJF's finger, and as the referee is like in the corner about to put the ring away while MJF is kind of like pleading with the referee, MJF turns around to Cody, who's kind of just gesturing to the crowd, just like, and he kicks MJF right in the dick. He finally stoops down to the level of the devil. He hits him with one crossroads, a second, and a third, and pins MJF for the 1-2-3. Cody Rhodes will be going to the main event of WrestleMania 40 Night 2. In the main event of WrestleMania Night 1, The Rock faces up against Roman Reigns, and yes, it is the main event of Night 1, and yes, this does create some storyline drama for CM Punk further down the road for yet again having not headlined a WrestleMania. Don't worry, he'll get his later. And as stated before, the rules of this tribal combat is that if Roman Reigns uses outside interference, not only will he lose his title of tribal chief, he will lose his championship title as well. So of course, Roman is telling Jimmy and Solo, do not come back. And the match is yet again another slow burn, jaw-jacking match. And towards the end, The Rock is beaten down. I mean, the announcers are kind of putting over the fact that The Rock's just been out of the game. He just doesn't have what it takes right now to beat the most dominant champion that we have seen in the modern era. And Roman Reigns looks down at The Rock and almost feels bad for him. And he delivers a Superman punch and a spear through the table, and he pins The Rock for the 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring, clean as a whistle. And Paul Heyman comes out with the championship belt, and then the music, that same music we heard at Elimination Chamber hits. Rikishi and the Elders come out. Roman kneels down to one knee, and Rikishi lays the lei back upon Roman's shoulders. And the final image of WrestleMania Night 1 is Roman Reigns standing with his belt in hand and the lei on his shoulders yet again, getting ready to take on Cody Rhodes in the main event of Night 2. In the main event of WrestleMania Night 2, Roman Reigns comes out with Solo Sikoa and Paul Heyman. Jimmy Uso is notably absent after his Hell in a Cell match with Jey Uso earlier in the night. And Cody Rhodes comes out alone. They have an epic 30-minute match. Cody Rhodes is pulling everything out of his arsenal he possibly can. The Cody Cutter, the Bionic Elbow, everything he's learned in the Indies. So maybe some really good shouts to the Indies and stuff. And he pulls out every stop that he possibly can. It's clear how desperate he is to win this match. Late in the match, Cody Rhodes sidesteps a spear, and the referee is speared instead, and Cody collapses to the ground. Roman screams for Solo, and Solo grabs a chair. Solo gets up on the apron to hand Roman the chair, but just before he can, a hand reaches out and pulls Solo off the apron and hits him. And the camera pans over, and it's Dustin Rhodes. He smiles up at Cody, and they're both distracted for just a moment too long because Roman attacks Cody, and Solo attacks Dustin. Roman grabs the chair and starts beating the hell out of Cody with it, and Solo hits a Samoan spike to Dustin. Roman screams at Solo to get in the ring, and they set Cody Rhodes up for that combination Samoan spike spear that they do. And Roman bounces off the ropes, but Cody pulls Solo into Roman's path. Solo eats the spear, and Solo and Cody are both left collapsed on the ground, and Roman Reigns is the only one standing at this point as the referee kind of starts to come to. And you kind of see Roman looking around, and he says, I guess I got to do everything myself around here. He stalks Cody Rhodes, he hits him with the Superman punch, and then as Cody gets up, he bounces off the ropes again, and hits Cody with a momentum spear just as the referee is coming to for the 1-2 kick out by Cody Rhodes. And Roman is just beside himself. He doesn't know what to do. He's doing that kind of same spot he does a lot where he's rubbing his temples and he just doesn't know how to handle this moment. It's really similar to last year when he and Solo were tagging together against the Usos, and you could see that Roman was kind of losing his mind. He didn't know what to do. He lost control of the situation, and that is the Roman that we are seeing again. Roman doesn't know what to do, so he decides he just needs to get out of there with his title while he can. There's no stipulation on this match. He goes to the timekeeper's area, he grabs his towel, and he goes to leave over the barricade, but before he can, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are standing there blocking his path. Roman scrambles over to another corner, and AJ Styles and LA Knight are standing there. He goes to another corner, and Sheamus and Drew McIntyre are blocking his path. And then in the last corner, Randy Orton and Seth Rollins are standing there blocking his path. He finally scrambles up the ramp, and Jimmy and Jay are standing there blocking his path. And Solo is on the ground, on the ramp, between the Usos and Roman Reigns, just as Solo's kind of getting back to his feet, recovering from the spear. Roman screams at Solo, "Get them! Take them out! Get me out of here!" And Solo is looking at the Usos, and he's looking at Roman, and he stands up to the Usos, and Roman is behind him screaming, "Get them! Take them out! I am your tribal chief!" And finally Solo slowly turns around and stands with his brothers against Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns can't believe what he's saying. He goes off on all the stuff he always says. "I am your tribal chief. You will do as I say. I dragged you back to the island of relevancy. You three were nothing before I came along." Suddenly, Roman is grabbed from behind by Cody. Cody throws Roman back into the ring. They go a couple more minutes, and then Roman goes to hit Cody with a surprise Superman punch, but Cody ducks it and hits Roman with the rock bottom. He picks up Roman, and he hits him with the crossroads, and he hits him with the second crossroads. And as he's standing there holding Roman for the third crossroads, he looks up to Dusty, and he says, "Thank you." He hits Roman with the third crossroads and pins Roman for the 1-2-3. And new undisputed Universal WWE Champion, Cody Rhodes. Dustin comes in and hugs his brother. He's joined by his mother, Michelle, his sister, Teal, and then his wife, Brandy, and their daughter, Liberty, come in to join him. They were all watching in the first row just as they were last year. The final image of WrestleMania 40 is the entire Rhodes family standing in the middle of the ring. Cody Rhodes looking up at Dusty, knowing that he finally finished his story. And that is how I would book the WrestleMania 40 main event. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you guys think the main event of WrestleMania 40 is headed. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a comment. This is a new style of video that I'm trying that it was just really fun to do. It's really fun to be creative in wrestling and be a fantasy booker and get really mad that the professionals can't do it better. I know there's a lot more nuance than that, But I really enjoyed making this video, so if you did like it, please let me know down in the comments, and I will see you